Imagine growing your social media account from 700 followers to 11,000 in 8 short months. Well, today's guest, Andrew Thake, did just that. Andrew has been a mortgage broker for 20 years, but in May of last year, so 8 months, only 8 months ago, decided, hey, I think I'm going to try this social media thing. And man, he's been having a ton of success. And whenever I see somebody who grows rapidly like this in a short period of time, it used to happen back in the day when people got a whole bunch of organic reach, which is way more difficult to do now. If you anybody who's doing social, much more difficult to actually get traction. And so I knew I had to have this conversation with Andrew. What did you do? Specifically, like, what are the steps that you're using to create the content? How do you find the ideas? How do you write it? How do you come up with the content? How do you film it? And so we do a deep dive into that. Before I have that conversation, though, I also discovered one of the things about Andrew is that he actually, prior to doing this, he had spent a long time writing blog posts for his website and his blog. And at one point, he was writing a blog post every single day for months and months and months. And so, that's worked great for growing business for him. But now he's made this shift into using social and has someone else do all the blog stuff for him, and it still works. The blog's still working. Now he's building out that second leg, if you will, of his business. So this is a fantastic conversation. We get very tactical about it, and he shares some ideas on where he gets hooks, and how his whole process is for creating the content and everything. I think you're going to dig it. So have a listen. Before I jump into that, hey, I'm Scott Bagford. This is the I Love Mortgage Brokering podcast, the number one podcast for mortgage brokers who want to scale their business. And I love talking to mortgage brokers like Andrew, who just take ideas and act on them consistently over a period of time, and you can see what happens. Before we jump into this episode, I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, OwnWell. This is this really cool tool for mortgage brokers. It's a Canadian tool that's similar to HomeBot, allows homeowners to monitor their home equity and buying power, and it is powerful. We've seen open rates of like 60 to 80% on the emails, and it creates a ton of engagement for your clients and conversations around mortgages, around the use of equity, whether or not they want to end or refinances. Check them out at ownwell.ca/Scott and check out this conversation with Andrew. Hey, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hey, Scott, thanks for having me.
So I'm excited to chat with you. You've got a bunch of stuff that you've done over the years, and you've built a social account incredibly quickly. But even before then, you're doing a lot of interesting things. So maybe before we jump into that, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got in the mortgage biz.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the show. Excited to be back on the show. Actually, I was on the show before a couple of years back. And so got in the mortgage business, took business through university, graduated, got a job at a major bank, and was doing just sort of had my hands in all the different things as more of their general financial advisor type people. You're doing a bit of mortgages, a bit of RSPs, and car loans or whatever it is. And out of all the products, I just love mortgages the most. So then I became part of the mortgage sales force. Actually, at another bank, the bank I was at wasn't hiring, so I did that for 2 years just to get my feet wet in commission-based sales. And actually, anyone who's kind of getting into the business, I always recommend start at the bank or start with the mobile mortgage sales force, because it's just great training grounds for sure. Plus, you have that big, confident bank brand behind you. Anyways, I get off track for a minute, but yeah, I've been doing this so I jumped over to Broker Channel. I've been doing that for about 15 or 16 years now, and here we are.
Right. Okay. So you've built up a successful business. You average about 180 files a year, which is fantastic. And I do want to talk about the social stuff that you did. But even before then, walk me through. You did a lot of blogging that I think has generated a bunch of business for you. So when did you start that, and what did that look like?
Yes. So I was trying to grow SEO on my own, which is tricky, and a lot of people just outsource it now. But I just knew that, I guess, content was key and SEO keywords were key. So just constantly trying to write blogs. Back then I was doing videos and, getting those on the website and then almost forcing myself to every single day not go to bed until you wrote a blog. And then when we were getting into long form blogs, they were getting to 1,000 to 3,000 words. That took a while. So just having to get the content and dial it in and make sure it sounds good and things like that. But just building this monster foundation of hundreds and hundreds of blogs on your website. At the time, SEO is just changing every day, it seems. But at the time, that was, I think, huge to build a great foundation. And my website back then wasn't really good, but then I think the icing on the cake was changing my website up, getting something a bit more user friendly, rebranding, and then having all this content sort of boosted into that helped a lot.
Right, because right now, if you search in Ottawa for mortgage broker, you're at the top of a lot of those searches, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and you had mentioned to me before, about 70% of your business comes from this organic search or Google, some form of Google. People find you because of you got a lot of reviews, like 450 something, or they find one of your, you show up in the map, and then they reach out to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's where it seems, we're outside of past clients. That's where all my business comes from. But when we actually, add the clients, past clients back in, yeah, probably maybe 30% past clients and 70% online. And it just sort of happens, a snowball effect since the pandemic, where a lot of things were going online anyways, and just sort of growing and growing and growing that to where we are today.
So the how many blog posts do you think you wrote? I mean, now you have somebody kind of help you with them, but when you started out, how many did you write?
Yeah, well, now people can get off easy. I mean, chat can just do it all for you. But back then, I would say like hundreds of blogs over the years. At one point, I was just one a day. Had to do one a day, kind of like Jerry
How long
Seinfeld
did you do
says
that,
he.
dude? That's crazy. How
Uh,
long did you write one a day? Do you think?
for months and months and months. I forget. That was years ago, so I forget offhand. But it definitely went on for quite a few months.
Right. Okay. And I mean, volume, right? That was, and then back the way that SEO works is obviously all these different topics and things. And like to write 1,000 for me, that takes time. Like that is not and nowadays you're right. You can spit that out so quick with ChatGPT. Like it's crazy how quickly you can create these things, or some of these other AI language models. But so you wrote them. How long would they take you typically?
I mean, it definitely took a while. I just my kids were really young back then, so they would be just doing their thing on the living room floor or whatnot, and I would just kind of sit there with my laptop and um, just kind of putter away at it, I guess. So it took a while when you're writing that. I mean, you get content ideas from other sources, so that helps at least give you some themes to get started. But yeah, I would say maybe, oh my gosh, like an hour or something. And it was quite a few years ago. Fortunately, I've just grown to the point where I can outsource a lot of that stuff. So now I can forget all of that stuff. Maybe my brain is blocking it out for.
Yeah, yeah, you're like the trauma of it all. Yeah, but I think it's interesting
Yeah.
that you basically, I mean, the lessons in this is that whether it's Google or we're going to talk about social, it's that consistency over time, that can help build something from something really big. And it sounds like that really worked well. And then, so talk to me about you got into social. When did you get into social, and what made you decide to go down that path?
Well, years and years and years ago, I was doing videos, and I tried to, get a video out to my database for my real estate agents once a week, and that's, anyone who touches anything with video just knows it's a monster commitment, and so a few different influences. Even the broker owner of my brokerage here was just saying, you got to get back into video. You got to get back into video. Got to get your face out there, and because my business has evolved to just being pretty much all online, it seemed like the next best thing. I mean, you can't like go to any airport, any bus stop, any coffee shop. Like you don't see people's faces anymore. They're just on their phones. And I knew I had to be part of that somehow. I had to be part of that scroll. And if it's probably only going to get crazier and almost worse over time. So I just had to be part of that. So anyways, a few people sort of kicked me into it almost. And I said, fine, I'll do it. And I was a little hesitant to do it because I know there's a ton of time. And I actually am quite introverted here. So to put on your social media presence does take a little bit of extra energy as well for me. And
Hmm.
but anyways, it was just like the Band-Aid had to rip off. I financially committed to it. I built a studio in my basement, which forced me almost as well to do it. I would say that nothing motivates you more than spending money and having to pay it back. Just to go off topic for a minute, that when I used to do some training, I would tell them like, just go buy the car or something, and then you'll figure out a way to pay for it. So it was sort of like I had to build the studio, and then I was forced to do the video. So that got me into it. And yeah, it's been growing quite a bit from there. It is still a lot of work to get the videos done, like find the content, film it. Working with the editing and things like that. It takes a long time for sure. Anyone who's getting in it, I don't want to sugarcoat that, but lead generating always takes time, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
If you're going to set up, drive around to every past client and give them pumpkins, at Halloween. If you're going to, sponsor golf tournaments, that's a whole day. If you
Hmm.
chop that up into 30-minute blocks and spread that out over a month, there's your video filming right there. So all lead generating takes time and energy. So I just kept telling myself, this is my lead generating. I'm not driving around to real estate office today. I'm not taking an agent out for lunch. I'm doing this. And then that helped me just,
Right.
to be able to block that and sort of be a bit more mentally, fit for it.
Okay. And I'm going to ask about that in a second. So you started out with about 700 followers, and now what are you at for followers?
About 11,700, funny enough.
And okay, so you step one was you decided you're gonna actually commit to this. You created a studio to make it a little bit easier on yourself. Then what was the volume? What did you start? How much were you creating, and how long did it take you to make?
Well, I originally wanted to post once a day, but that was just really, really tough to post once a day. For the type of filming I do, I'm not like a Gary V. Just grab the camera and whether you're showered or not, or in a t-shirt or hat or not, I just like
Yeah.
my personality doesn't allow me to do that. Unfortunately, I'm kind of jealous of people that can just grab the camera and be walking down the street and start talking. I had to go with a bit more of a professional, polished look, which does align with my brand. So I guess that's a good thing all in all.
Yeah, you
But
gotta stick with what resonates, or it won't. You won't be able to sustain it for sure if it's effort. If it's effort to do and effort to pretend, it's like, oh, that's even worse.
Oh, for sure. And just being like a bit more of an introvert, it took me a while to kind of put on that game face and that, just because your sort of Instagram personality is almost like your radio personality. Like it's a very different version of oneself for me, at least. So that it just took a time. It took time to like get the script and make sure it sounded good, and all that what kind of went into that. So it was taking quite a while. So now I post maybe 2-3 times a week, and potentially I'll do more. We'll see, but it's definitely a juggling act as well with just doing your all day-to-day client stuff plus filming these videos, because it's not just filming them, it's writing, it's finding the content, writing the scripts, doing the filming, and then there's editing involved as well. So it does take time to do them for sure.
Okay, so 2 to 3 posts a week. And how long? What's the time commitment per week for you to do that? Would you say it's like, for each piece of content, is it an hour? Is it 2 hours? Or is it like, what would you estimate? I know it can vary depending on a lot of things. If some days you're going to be like, oh, this went easy. Other days it's going to take more work. But I'm curious.
Now I'm down to about an hour, if that's kind of finding the content, like scripting the content, finding an idea and then kind of creating a script around that. We can talk about ideas where top 10 Google trends or things like that for first time home buyers. Like, so basically finding it, writing it, filming it, and then getting it chopped up. The clips. It takes maybe about an hour to an hour and a half per video.
Okay. And then how long are the videos typically?
They're about 30 seconds to a minute.
Okay. And then so your goal is to make 2 or 3 a week. And then when you first started out, like what worked to help you get traction? Because man, I gotta say, like in this, it's much harder to get followers today than it was. And so the fact that you've done this recently, if you did this like 5-6 years ago, I'd be like, okay, cool. But like, what were you doing, do you think, that helped you grow so quickly?
I was, posting feedback wise, so I don't kind of sound like I'm tooting my own horn here, because I'm just putting it out to the public and they're telling me either through the views what's good or just people's feedback, but just posting things that were interesting and actually would get people to stop and listen to it, which, if we've all just sat there and scrolled, it is hard to grasp attention. So just trying to and even me, I was like, oh, no one's going to want to listen to some mortgage person. How boring is that? It's not the most exciting thing in the world. It's not like designing rockets or something. So, but just trying to figure out how you could have a little sex appeal within that. So getting into topics like how to pay your mortgage off faster, how to buy rental properties, if you're having trouble getting into the market, how to, tips to bust through that. So just getting things that do spark a bit more interest, I found was really important. And when you are posting, finding those videos that are getting some traction and then following that theme, I think is a good idea as well, and not venturing off too far from that, because once you get a video that starts to get some views, that's kind of what's working, and I think you have to kind of keep that path going.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at your account right now. You got some views of 600,000 views, like on Instagram, 300,000. That's crazy. So you said first step is you shoot 30-second videos, takes you an hour to 2 per week. And you film 2 to 3 of them all at once? Like you just do like bang, like, or is it one at a time, or how are you doing that?
Right now, I've sort of set aside an hour a day for. Well, actually, I used to set aside that hour around lunchtime to just be catching up on the morning and getting ready for the afternoon. But now I do take 30 minutes out of that hour to film. So in the morning, I'll maybe grab the content and. You get better and better at it. So, but now I can write the content quite quick now. And then so I'll film it over that hour at lunch, we'll say. Not that I take a lunch, but that's usually when I do it. And then I find that helps. I've tried the whole, film 6 at once or a whole week's content at once. And probably because I'm not the best on camera, which if you watch these people slap me for saying that, because they always say, oh, it's great and stuff. But for me, I don't feel like, I'm a natural on the camera. So I find it's really hard to do like 6 at once or so.
Right. Okay, that's fair. And so where do you find ideas? So you said you'll be like you try to write, you create something, you write a script, find an idea, write a script for it, film it. Where do the ideas come from?
They come from all over. And originally, when I first got into it, it was funny. I was going to go a whole different path. I was going to do more like situations and just talk about, oh, this client came in and they gave me some falsified documents, or this person did or didn't qualify for whatever, or this person was semi-famous, and I thought I'd do more situational stuff, but it just wasn't really my. I filmed a couple of those, and it wasn't natural for me. So I dumped that idea. But now I'll even go to I think it's Ava or something. You post about her stuff a lot. Like she just talks about, going to Google and typing in first time home buyer, and then Google almost like then completes your thing. Like what's the down payment need to buy your first house, or, FHSA stuff. So I turn to Google a lot to see, what are some more common search terms. And then even just using social media for inspiration as well. If you're scrolling and you land upon a real estate agent's page or a financial planner's page or something, and there's some videos that you get motivated by there, they're just great places to grab kind of the spark to light the fire of some video content.
Right. Okay. So then you write it a script, and you write it word for word, or how, like, I'm getting into the weeds of this, but I'm trying to make it useful for the listeners to be like, okay, I want to do this, but do you write it word for word, or is it bullet points, or how do you do it?
I voice to text. That way it goes just a bit more natural about the idea. And then you can almost, when you're saying it, you just know if it's going to work or not. And I tried chat for a while to write the content, like write me an Instagram video 30 seconds
Yeah.
long about this or that, but it just isn't the right.
It doesn't sound like you, right?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like anyone. It just sounds like it's great for email or something, but for that, it just doesn't have the right thing. Now I do have this monster prompt that I have, and I can throw it into chat with an idea, and it can actually help me through creating some hooks and stuff like that. Like you put in literally like 70 of the best hooks, and then you can put your content in there and say, create me a hook based on all of these 70 hooks that you think would be the best fit. It can figure stuff like that out for you. So I've tried that a couple times, and I thought that was kind of neat because the hooks are most videos that people only watch like 10 to 15 seconds of them. It's really just they get through the hook and then a little more. So the hook is everything. Without the hook, you don't really have a video. So
Okay, so this is about what I was thinking to ask. So basically, you take a bunch of hooks that you've collected, drop them in there, and say, use these. What would you say? How would you do that? Just so I'm clear.
Yeah. So let's say you Googled, 25 best Instagram hooks of 2025, and you just cut and paste those into chat. And then you took the script of the video that you want, like let's say top reasons to open an FHSA account. And then you'd say, hey, chat, check out these hooks. And then, and then this script I've just given you, and write me a hook. Like pick one of these hooks that you think will work and write me, or give me 10 examples. It'll actually say, don't buy your first home until you know this fact, or something like that. It'll kind of line up which ones might be the best fit, and then you can cater them a little bit.
Okay, so then you use that for the hook, and then after the hook, what about the content piece? Because that's the hook is just the thing to get the attention, and then do you add in a story, or what do you do after that? How do you go from there?
So my videos are definitely more factual, a lot of numbers and things like that, which is funny because when some people pride themselves of just being a total expert, and then when they talk to a client, they go through all the different numbers and scenarios. I'm a bit more of a emotional supporter to clients, and just talking them through, the energy and emotion that goes into buying your first house, for example. So I was never like a get down into the nitty gritty of the numbers and Excel spreadsheet, growing. Thing that's happened because of these videos, which is a hilarious spinoff that hilarious to me, that has been amazing, is that they've made my mortgage advising skills better. Because if someone just says, hey, Andrew, should I put down 19% and take the lower rate and pay the CMHC fee, or should I just do the 20% and not have the CMHC fee at the higher rate? In our minds, we know that answer, but do you actually have an example? Like, well, on a $400,000 mortgage, for example, your CMHC fee would be this, but your interest rate is only 0.2 higher, which means you'd pay, X amount more interest there. So I actually have the numbers now for all these scenarios, and it makes me vet, different things, like making one extra payment per year. Sure, it's a great idea, but what does that actually translate your mortgage to? So it forces me to actually go and figure the numbers out and solve those problems. And now I actually have a manual of amazing different scenarios and ideas and hacks and tricks and techniques that I can share with my clients, which is actually now helping to build my business. Because when people come to me, they'll say, yeah, I'm not just here to get you a mortgage, but I've got like a whole you know,
A
menu
whole
of
bag of
options
tricks.
on exactly a whole bag of trips. So it's forced me to be a sharper broker and be better with those numbers.
Okay, so step one, go find some stuff by doing either Google, typing, searching people that you follow. And then in that step, you're going to, even then you go to writing, which you're going to use ChatGPT to help you with again, it's going to be your voice, but you're going to use it I like it as like a research tool or a planning tool, not necessarily the final decision, but man, it can help with a lot of those things. And so you use that to create some hooks that you think would be compelling. And then the one that you grab, then you'd go and film it. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. Exactly.
Is there any steps that I skipped or anything that you think
Well,
makes
from
it
getting started, I think you've got to just hone in on what you want to do. I think that's really important. You can't be flopping around with and what your theme is, because do you want to be the sort of the joke person, the one who does the dances, the one who points to text bubbles? Because once people start following you, they follow you for a reason. They follow you for the brand and the image and the idea and the content and stuff. So if one day you're doing like a super educational post and the next thing you're doing some silly, you know, trend or
TikTok
something
dance?
like that, yeah, it's not really going to click. So I think you got to figure out your style, because this is an image thing, and the idea that people are seeing your face, they're seeing your studio, they're seeing your clothes, they're seeing everything. So you just got to what is personal to you. So you got to pick that, and then you've got to pick the theme. Do I want to be educational? Do I want to be a storyteller? Do I want to be a fact finder? Do I want to be a wealth, helping people build wealth? And just find your feel there, and then yeah, I guess you just got to sit down and rip the Band-Aid off and film something, and then run it past all your 10 friends and have them pick it apart so you can maybe make it a bit better.
Right. So you got this thing, and you use voice to text, which is a good idea because I often write out my script. I don't always use it, but I use it. But talking it out you're going to talk the script. So talking it will help you. If you're listening, should help you frame it better. Do you find?
Oh yeah, it's funny you say that, because I even a couple of years ago, people would kind of poke fun at me because I like don't type anything. I don't like, if I'm texting, it's voice. If I'm I typing on a keyboard, I'd be like a kid now with fingers. I voice to everything. I probably could barely type anymore. I just talk everything now. It's way faster to talk than it is to type for me anyway. So
Yeah.
Siri does it all for me.
Right. You just do that. Okay. And then you put, and then do you have an editor who makes your videos pretty and posts them for you? Do you do that or someone do it for you?
It's a bit of a hybrid. I do a bunch in house, and then for some more technical stuff, I do outsource. And I would say for anyone who's just not sure where to get started with that, like just turn to Fiverr and really just grab someone, say Instagram editing, and that's probably your quickest way to get going there. And probably stick more budget friendly. You'll be more often up to post more if your edits aren't really expensive, because some people could charge $50, $100 a video, but if you're just really getting started and budget minded, just try and find someone that could just start cutting up the clips and putting captions on it, and then kind of grow from there if you wanted.
So then, okay, you shoot this 30-second video, you give it to your editor, and then do you publish it or them? Who posts it?
I publish it. So then I write up the sort of the caption or the script that goes with it. Just research the trending keywords that would go with that, and then I post it myself there.
Right. Okay. And do you do stories as well, or just do like just posts?
I tried the story thing a few times. It just didn't work for me. I really wanted to be a storyteller and just tell hilarious stories about mortgages and funny client situations.
I mean like yeah, you can tell stories, but I'm meaning the stories like Instagram stories where you share like the stuff that disappears. Do you do those?
Oh yeah. So when I post it, then you can just go add to story, and I just pop it up there. So I don't do that and then add text and new posts and all that stuff. I do a pretty lazy person's version of that. I just post it, and then you just click that share to story button.
Right. So you got 104 posts, 11,000 followers, and which is again incredible that you've done what you've done in such a short period of time. But some of your posts have got you a lot of attention, and so. Do you get any negative attention? Do you get has any of your stuff got like somebody, hey, I don't like this and hate on you, or has it all been positive?
It's funny you say that, because that's sort of, in the back of your mind when you're posting these, is someone just going to troll you or whatever you'd call it these days. But fortunately, no. there's not. I don't get a lot of comments on my videos, good or bad. But Yeah, fortunately, I haven't had. I mean, there's a couple people, but you could just delete them. But they most of the time they have no idea what they're talking about, or they'll, for example, someone says, "Well, I was talking about ways to pay your mortgage off faster," and they said, "Well, most lenders don't give you options to pay your mortgage off faster." Like usually, it's someone commenting, but it's just something that makes no sense. But you could just delete it and don't let it
Yeah.
wreck your day.
Um, so okay, and then is there anything else that advice you'd give to, like, let's say you could travel in time back and you started this what month?
For the social, like the Instagram stuff, I started that
Yeah.
around May last year.
Yeah, so from May to now. So, like, what advice would you give yourself if you were starting it over?
I would. That's a great question. That's a great question. I guess I wouldn't change anything. No, actually, I would. It's not that I would change something, but I would tell myself what the reason for this is. Because I just sort of had the light switch. It was actually another mortgage broker that said this to me, and it was like the switch had flicked. I went in originally starting these thinking I'm going to make money from this. This will be a stream of income for my business through these social media videos, and you're posting and you're posting, you're posting, and you're investing endless hours in it and money and all of that stuff. And you're not getting a client who says, I found you on Instagram, I need to do a mortgage today. And I was just wondering, when will that moment come? That'll be the icing on the cake of all this time I've invested. And it's like knocking on door, good old fashioned door knocking. Like eventually, someone hopefully says, "Sure, let's do this," and that just wasn't happening. And I was actually kind of losing the wind in my sails. Well, why am I doing this if I'm not getting any business from it? And I could just invest all this time and money elsewhere. But another broker said, don't think of it as I post this video now I got to get a deal from it. Think of it as client retention. Add all your, do a transaction with someone, add them to this social media thing. Now they're going to see you a couple times a week. Maybe they'll share it with their friends, and think of it as a branding opportunity when people, wonder kind of what your feel is, and are you like them and stuff like that. So use it as an opportunity for that, and maybe use it as a way to connect with people. So if someone likes your photo about buying your first home, uh, reach out to them and say, "Hey, you like my video about buying your first home," and now you're talking to this person that you never would have been talking to before. So
Right.
I was just sitting back and saying, "Oh, I've done it. If you build it, they will come," but they weren't. So now I'm trying to use it as more of a proactive thing, where it's giving me an opportunity to reach out to people where I normally wouldn't. Because if there's 11,000 followers there, I didn't do this early enough. Sadly, I only started this a couple months ago, not even. But if all of them had a message from me saying, "Hey, I'm Andrew. Are you buying a house this year? Renewing this year? How can I help?"
Yeah.
Like that's 11,000 people that are going to get that message from you that didn't. So I would say anyone who's starting this sees those opportunities earlier for sure.
Right. And where did you find your editor you have?
It's a long story, but I started with some people on Fiverr, and then that kind of led me to someone else, who led me to someone else, who now I've got. Actually, depending on what the post is, there's a few different people I turn to. So it's not a simple answer to that. Unfortunately, I'd say there's a team would sound silly, but there's a few people. I actually do a lot of the core editing here, but then I depending on what's needed, I've got a few people to turn to.
So so back to the time. So you take about an hour. So is that hour include some editing? So, like, let's say you do some of the draft editing, or is that hour just find the idea, voice out what you're going to say, film it, and then hand it off? And, use the ChatGPT thing to help you kind of, frame it and then film it. Or is that on top of that hour that you're spending?
That would involve very base level editing, like maybe getting all your clips, because the one video is not usually just one start to finish script. It's a bunch of clips sort of merged together. So kind of getting all the clips that you want out of all the different takes, because each video I'll do maybe 6 different takes, and then grabbing the different bites, like the clips from all of that, and kind of merging them together and things like that. So that would probably be within that hour.
Okay, so you do like you pull the best takes, and so you do, like, I often just do one take, which again maybe it shows the quality of my videos, because I'm like I'm not getting that much attraction compared to what you're doing, and so it's like I'll just turn it on and go, and I'm like, that's good. But you actually will like shoot it a couple times, and the editing, because you can stitch it together pretty easily, especially if you're dropping in some B-roll and stuff, right?
I will do quite a few takes, and I guess just to get that, if you're just bogged down in a bunch of files and your mind is not in the right place, to just sort of snap your fingers and be like, "Hey, everybody, check out this awesome new thing about mortgages." Like you have to kind of takes a couple
Yeah, you're
runs to
right.
kind of get
Yeah, yeah. To
get in
get
the
your
groove.
energy to the level where you're actually like, I'm excited with this. I'm not like, this is, uh, that makes sense. And
It just,
so how much?
I
Yeah.
fumble my words constantly too. It's also like, I don't know why. You just put a camera in front of me. I could blab on for hours, but you put a camera in front of me and I can barely like spell the alphabet. So it does take me a few takes to get through just simple scripts.
So this is now you did blog posting for a while. That was kind of your thing, but now this is your thing. So are you spending about an hour a day on this, or what do you think you spend per day?
I'd say about an hour a day on this, which it's still it's a huge amount of time, and it's so new to me that I still wonder where this will all take me. But I've just committed to doing it for a year. Seems to be going all right so far, as far as followers are concerned. So we'll see, come May how it's all going. But yeah, it's just a monster dedication, and you're always in this business. When there's a new idea popping up every minute, where could that hour be elsewhere? Where could the money go elsewhere? And so that's just what I'm always kind of fighting with as I do this. But again, it's really new to me. Probably 5 years in or something, it'd be a whole different story.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. And so you got like a lot of Google reviews. How did you? I'm going to go back to that for a second. How did you get so many? Did you have that baked into your process? Are you just awesome and because like even people who like you, they don't always review. Like it's not like they're like, oh, Andrew, that was amazing, thanks. Like, so how did you manage to get so many? Because it's definitely helped your reach in terms of yes, and the SEO and the blog posting, but like the reviews also helped a ton, I would imagine as well.
Oh, well, Google reviews are life now. Like it's I don't know, maybe people will feel different, but I just feel like if I don't know, for me, I go and find people, you want your carpets cleaned or something like that. It's just Google reviews. That's everything. That's the be all end all. So that needs like a lot of attention. I would say for people out there who aren't maybe focusing on it and they want to improve that Google image there.
But how did you get so many though? So like I know you've been doing this a long time, but I know other people that have been doing it just as long and they don't have as many reviews as you. So how did you manage to get so many? Do you actually ask in the process? Do you have reminders that you send out, or
Yeah,
is it just
absolutely. You got to
yeah?
ask for sure. And if you ask at the good moments, like congratulations, you're approved, or if you just do something really cool to save their butt or some way to save them money, definitely great times to ask. A lot of time they forget, so you have to then I email them the link too. Say, hey, we were just chatting about the review. If the opportunity comes up, no pressure. Here's the link. You could text them the link too as well. We do after closing calls. So if you talk to them during the process and they forget, sometimes when you do the after closing call and you mention it again, that they know themselves that they forgot to do that or they haven't had a chance yet. And many people, if you ask them during the process, they'll say, "Oh, we'll get to it after closing." So doing that at the after closing calls does help a lot for sure. So it's just
Okay.
persistence. You got to be really persistent on the Google reviews. If you just say, "Hey, can you leave me a review?" Probably 1 in 20 would actually just go ahead and do that. It's just not good enough. You have to be not in a harassing way. You just have to be on top of it and be
You got to be more
persistent.
consistent. Yeah. What do you have for a team? So like, you're doing quite a few mortgages. What do you have for support around you to do all these files?
So I've got three wonderful, wonderful assistants here, and they are, yeah, just such a valuable part of the team. One of them I just hired this last January, so she's just a year in now, just over a year in, and then the other two have been with me for quite a few years. And I used to do probably about 45 million in volume with no assistant at all, which is crazy. But I had to eventually take the plunge, and then it was like one just led to the other. I brought one on, and then about 3 months later, I brought another one on. So to go from no assistants to two full-time assistants in a couple months was a huge jump. But I was just ready to go all in. So cards on the table, and then that just kept growing. So now I brought on this other one, which actually does help because if all of a sudden, we work a lot of hours in this business. So if you just now are like, okay, we'll throw this new 2 hour, because now I can get it down to an hour, but before it was about 2 hours to do each video. So that
Right.
on top of
So
busy
that
days,
meant you had to take time. You had to take time away. Somebody had to keep everything going. Like it wasn't like so having extra help allows you to be able to carve out time every day to do this.
exactly.
Right. That makes sense. And then what does your volume do from when you went from no assistant to having, two assistants?
So now I mean, I'm still growing. It's sort of every year I've been growing. I will say that about 5 years ago, I kind of, not that I got back into the business. I just said, I'm going to start, applying myself more. I kind of, I've got 3 kids, so I just did some autopilot for a while. And then just as they were getting a bit older, I thought, I'm going to start to apply myself. And then so started off sort of like 40 to 50 to 60 to so about trending around 70 last year. And so hopefully it'll just keep growing that, which would be great. A lot of people went businesses went down after the pandemic, and I was fortunate enough to just keep growing
Going.
since the pandemic. Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. So this has been such a fun conversation, man. It's been cool to see you jump into this new thing. I mean, I know that one of the things we had talked about before was just the importance of consistency. And like you once you make the decision on this, like you just kept doing it. Whereas a lot of people, they'll chase the next marketing idea and this one and that one, and then they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off. But you did the blogging for a long time and the SEO stuff, and now that same focus and attention is going into this social. And I feel like social is like the town hall. It's like where people hang out, or it's the shopping mall that they go into. And so the bigger presence you have on there, people will see it, and it will turn into But to your point, it does not necessarily happen right away.
Yeah, and you just have to take the little wins. We were a little family gathering, and my anyway, someone was there who was a bit distant to me, but they said, "Oh, I saw one of your videos, and I shared it with your son." Distant, not that we don't get along. Someone I barely ever see. It was at a family gathering, but it's just funny. They had seen the videos. They shared it with a family member, and my dad was like, "Oh, I was at the gym, and someone came up and said I saw your son's video." So and then I was getting my hair cut, and the owner of the hair shop came in and said, "I saw your video." So I do get that a lot now, which is kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Any questions that I didn't ask that you think I should have?
Well, you and I could probably talk for hours, so I think we're good there.
100%.
But
Yeah.
absolutely. But no, I think we've hit the nail with the hammer.
Hey, man, this has been so good. It was interesting when we chatted and you were talking about that $25 million blueprint program that I had before and ran. And so I rebooted it. So we rebooted it for our brokerage, and I got a bunch of people starting to go through it again. And because, I was like, you're right. Like, why? Like, again, this goes back to if something's working, why do you just keep doing more of it? And one of the cool things is I've taken the content and ran it through ChatGPT and said, help me make this better. And the suggestions are fire. I'm like, I cannot believe when you take, your best ideas and put them into something like an AI tool, and then what the stuff that comes out of the other end is like, wow, this is incredible. So thank you for that reminder for me to jump back into that.
Well, and chat's just phenomenal for that. Like for at one point, just for fun, I was saying, act as if you're Grant Cardone. You're at a $20 million mortgage business. You're in Canada. And you need to grow that to 50 million by the end of the year. Like, what are the top 10 things Grant Cardone would do? And then it would break it all down, and it's like, okay, break that into daily activities, and what can I do this second? And it's just amazing what chat can do. Like, it just can bring you into all of these professionals around you and just grab all their information and knowledge. So that was huge. And but I'm glad you mentioned $25 million blueprint, because for me, that was such a pivotal part, because that was actually when I was saying, I'm going to get back to the business and kind of get going again. And so I signed up for that, and I was doing the cohorts, and it was phenomenal. I mean, the information, the support, the guidance was really strong part of my success today was built off of that. So a huge thanks. I'm forever grateful for that, for the cohorts, for Hired in 7 days, and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that shout out, man. But at the end of the day, you still did the work. Like, it's not the, somebody said to me the other day, it's not the path. It's you walk the path. So yeah, we pointed you on the path, but you did it. And you're one of these guys who's consistently will just do the activities, whereas a lot of people don't do them. And then it's like, well, that's why it didn't work. So kudos to you for that. And I'm excited to see you continue to grow this. I also think, here's the last thought I'd say is that I'm willing to bet when you started the blogging, you didn't see business directly from that either. Like you were playing the long game that's now been extremely useful for you. And so this is just another version of that, except it's just a different, medium, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And, I think you've just hit the nail with the hammer. Like, anything we do in this business that's going to create long-term success probably isn't an overnight thing. It's just got to build and got to build. And even with social media, I just have to tell myself, perhaps, be more patient. They'll call me like Gary Vee always talk about be patient. But, I think you're right. Yeah. You're sitting there for an hour every day writing a blog. Like, where is this going to take me? What's the point of all of this? But, if you see value in it, you just have to buckle down. A colleague of mine sort of saying how much she hates when I go to a conference with her, because I'll go home and immediately implement everything. Like, you and I were just at that conference last week, and I came home and changed a whole bunch of stuff. And she just hates it, because she'll go home, she'll write it like 10 pages of notes and not implement anything. And I'll just implement everything. And you just got to do that. You just got to grab those ideas and take that moment to change. Because once the change is there, it's happening. And then it's just habitual after that.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that's amazing. Well, thanks for chatting with me, man. I really appreciate it. And anybody who's listening to this, I'm going to make sure I have links to Andrew's social accounts and your blog and everything, and people can go check you out and creep on your stuff. And keep it up, man. And I'm sure we'll be chatting again.
You got it, Scott. Thanks again for having me. Take care.
Thanks. Bye for now.
Bye.
Hey, thanks again for listening, and hopefully you felt inspired from that conversation. And whatever that strategy that you're going to apply is, whether it's blogging or whatever, or creating social content, just follow Andrew's lead and just do it consistently. That's the key. Consistency is the key. I loved my conversation with Andrew, and very inspiring, and made me go, because I haven't started social a year ago too, and I am. If you're haven't. Hey, two things. One, go follow him for sure. If you're a mortgage broker, follow me. I have been working on my social account, but it has been a lot of work to get it to 2,000 followers since I started last year. And now I'm like, okay, maybe I can, what can I do to improve? So I'm going to work on improving my social accounts after this conversation with Andrew. Thanks again for listening. And as I always say, there's no problem in your mortgage business that someone else hasn't already solved. Your problem is who's got the answer. Hopefully this podcast provides some of the answers. Thanks again for listening. I'm Scott Peckford, and I will see you on the next episode.